Consistency is considered a virtue. And consistency is necessary when you're writing a scholarly paper. Consistency is necessary when you are giving someone instructions how to build something. If you are a shipbuilder and you're training people to become shipbuilders, you need to be consistent in how you teach them. Consistency is a very important tool. But that's what it is. It's a tool. Too many people see consistency as part of who they are. And that's a trap. Let me explain why. The moment you perceive consistency of part of who you are, that means you are trapped in a pattern and a cycle. Christ told us to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. One thing about serpents is that they are not consistent in their behavior. A serpent will sense the environment to see whether it's fit to prey on a prey or not. A dove is an animal that's not consistent in its behavior pattern. When a dove senses danger, it removes itself. You may say, but Rashid, that's consistent. No, what I mean is the dove doesn't hold on to a specific location. When the dove senses that it's not wise to remain in that location, the dove flies away. When a serpent senses that the temperature is too hot, it will go underground. However, human beings often hold on to things that destroy them. And why is that? It's because we have been conditioned by the world to be consistent. Too many people just get along with how they were raised, or how society expects them to be raised. Now, they can't help how they were raised because they went through it, but they agree with the models of raising children that society offers them. And one of them is that children are taught to be consistent. Parents are told to be consistent. Now, listen to what I'm saying here. Consistency is a tool. What do you use a tool for to accomplish something? First of all, what you want to accomplish must be honorable and worthwhile to begin with. Because if you're working on an outcome that's not desirable, neither is it functional, then the tool is being misused. And the same thing is happening with this thing called consistency. To be consistent simply means that you hold on to a method or a way of doing things for a long period of time. That is what being consistent means. Now, being consistent, as I mentioned before, it can be used for both good and for bad. Too often it's used for bad. Let me explain. If you formed an idea about something, but later you find out that the idea you formed about something was wrong because it was based on disinformation or misinformation, then what's the right thing to do? To admit you've been wrong because you've been misinformed, and then you alter your way of thinking. You alter how you relate to that object. For example, if you were raised into thinking that parents are entitled to unconditional honor, and now that you're older, you realize that there are a lot of parents who are harming their children, there are a lot of parents who are out of their mind, there are a lot of parents who are just reprobates, then what needs to happen? You need to admit that you've been taught wrong. You were conditioned into thinking parents are entitled to unconditional honor. And that's how you relate to your parents. Even when you saw that your parents were out of line, even when you saw that what your parents were telling you doesn't add up, you got along because you've been conditioned through punishment and rewards to give unconditional honor to parents. So the same you expect from other people. So when you encounter people, whether they were adults or little children, who didn't conform to your ideal, you became upset. You were offended. You were upset because they didn't honor their parents unconditionally. And even when someone tells you clearly that they are not honoring their parents because their parents are dishonorable, you're upset. Why? Because you don't want to face yourself. You don't want to face that you've been conditioned the wrong way. Instead, you avoid the issue altogether and you ignore the dysfunction that comes from it by blaming others who don't conform to your ideal. So you remain consistent with your ideal, that parents are entitled to unconditional honor. And this mindset blinds you for the fact that your own parents are now used by evil spirits to hold you back. So now that you realize you're being held back, you don't want to acknowledge that you are complicit in you being held back. So now you want an excuse, so you don't have to face yourself. And the best excuse is to hate on someone else. Have you ever wondered why so many older people complain about the youth, saying the youth of the day, they show no respect, this and that? What's going on? They cling onto expectations that their parents transferred onto them, but they never examined those expectations. Instead, they blindly began to walk in their parents' expectations. And during their lifetime, now I can't say during their lifetime, but still alive, but you get what I'm saying. Over the years or decades, they realized that what they were walking in does not work in their favor in the long run. However, because most of the people they have around them, friends or family, are people that share the same dysfunction, the only thing that binds them together as a group is the dysfunction. So anyone that questions the dysfunction also questions the cohesion of the group. So because people don't want to become the target of violence, they often just comply or get along with the dysfunction, instead of seeking deliverance from both the group as well as from the dysfunction. And that's why when they're older, approaching 40s and 50s, and they've realized that decades of their youth went by, that they can't get back, and realize that they were the ones that enabled their parents' expectations. They're the ones that acted out without questioning it. They don't want to face this. So now, when they see younger folks, they want the younger folks to be trapped just like them so they feel at ease. But when you have young folks, they realize, hold on a minute. I can't just get along with everything mom and dad says. Yes, I should be honorable towards them. Yes, I should consider them. I should listen to them, especially if I'm still in their house. But come on now. If dad has a bitter attitude, it's because he chose not to process things. I cannot allow myself to be polluted by his unwillingness to face reality. So when you have someone in their 20s or maybe their late teens that realizes this, that's a very big step. That's something to be praised. But what happens often in society is that when someone breaks away from generational curses, that same community that enabled the generational curses will turn on them, saying, you're disrespectful, how do you talk to your father like that? Yes, we know he's wrong, we know he's a crook, we know he's a scammer, but still, he's your father. And then an outsider looks at it and thinks, come on now, that man is a scammer, he's a crook, he is a reprobate, he has become bitter, and now you guys say that the son, who didn't even choose to be born, the son who had no choice where he would grow up, the son now has to accept that his biological dad will pollute his life and ruin his future just because that man doesn't want to face things? Are you out of your mind? So understand the following here. The world continues because people enable violence. Violence is transferred from one generation to the next. That's how it goes. So when you want to be free from generational curses, you need to stop, you need to stop considering people that refuse to consider you. You need to stop being consistent when that consistency is killing you. Look, if someone is antisocial and they're very open about it, it's still wrong. Because as a human being, you're designed to have social relationships. So someone is antisocial and they're open about it everywhere. That individual is consistent. But that consistency is self-destructive. So they should forfeit this consistency and change how they think. Okay? But what often happens is self-destructive people are encouraged and enabled to remain self-destructive because they are self-destructive in a consistent manner. And because society around them worships consistency, they say, well, at least this individual is honest, at least with him you know what you're dealing with. No. If a consistency brings harm, then that consistency needs to be forfeited. That's how simple it is. However, in the world, worldly people want to retain their consistency in their error. They are in error and they want to remain in that error. So they are consistent in avoiding the truth. They are consistent in only selecting people that will not challenge their error. So they're consistent. They may even be very open about it. But that doesn't change the fact they're self-destructive. That does not change that they're enabling violence. That does not change that they're enabling evil spirits. That does not change that they are wrong. And that does not cancel out their obligation to repent and comply with justice. Yet, in this world, people put consistency above human safety. And that is just evil. But that is what's going on in this world. Before I close this video, I want to tell you the following about this whole consistency thing. It should have been clear already by now in the video, but it comes down to this. It is not safe to remain with people that don't want to examine anything. When people are consistent in avoiding anything that may challenge their unexamined expectations, then they're not safe to be around. Okay? Let's go back to the example that I gave about people being conditioned to give unconditional honor to parents. Let's say now that you have a town where you have a drunk father that's screaming against the children, beating on the children, sometimes even in public, but people don't do anything about it because people don't want to be known as intruders in other people's business. People respect pride. People are so into this privacy myth that they prefer honoring this privacy hoax instead of intervening on behalf of the children who can't defend themselves. So the community forfeits their obligation towards the children because they want to be consistent. Because people in that community always have the attitude, never mind other people's business, or stay in your lane. Or they have all these sayings that they're holding on to, so now they want to remain consistent. So when in their face harm occurs against children of their own community, they want to be consistent so they don't intervene. They say it's none of our business, it's his marriage, it's his kids, he's paying rent over there, not us. People make up all these excuses. That child will grow up wounded, and as an adult, that human being will likely be a cesspool of evil spirits, and they didn't even ask for it. It just happened to them. So who is the one that forces demons on that individual? The community did. And now, those demons will use that individual to cause destruction. And here's the thing. Because the demons now have a hold on the community, the demons will begin to infest more people. So by that community not intervening in that dysfunctional family, they now have legions of demons to deal with. And now they have crime to deal with. Now they have drug addiction to deal with. Now they have a lot of stuff that they're reaping. However, let's say you're part of that community and you saw that they were consistent in their principles, but also knows that their principles were not practical and that they enabled harm on one of their own to preserve the principles. you should notice right away that those people are not safe. Because let's say now that one day you as an adult, you are endangered and you're asking for help. But helping you goes against some expectation that they hold high. Because principles are expectations people esteem so high they don't want them to be challenged. So a principle is an expectation that people guard at all costs. So let's say you are in danger because your landlord wants to kick you out, but the landlord has no right to do so because you've paid your rent. But because there is some weird notion people hold on to that private property is sacred, and now because the landlord wants you away from his estate, you now have to go. He gives you back your rent and says you have to leave, even though this is against the law. Let's say now you're about to become homeless and nobody wants to help you and nobody wants to assist you in taking actions against the unlawful acts of the landlord. What's going to happen now? You'll likely become homeless, or you end up in other dangerous situations. Why? Because the society around you, or the people around you, don't want to act on your behalf. Because they're not interested in safety. They're only interested in the validation of their expectations. So, the moment you notice that they don't even spare the children from their addictions, because holding on to principles is an addiction, the moment you notice that, you should realize immediately these people are not safe to be around. If they don't even spare the children, what about me? Yet, too often, people stay longer around certain individuals that should have left a long time ago. Look, if you encounter someone that's drinking from a bottle, and the bottle contains an alcoholic beverage with a high percentage of alcohol, and let's say that individual also carries a knife, you don't have to be a rocket scientist nor a genius to realize, okay, this individual is drunk, he keeps on drinking, and he has his knife in his hand. Sooner or later, someone's getting hurt. In this case, it's obvious. But there are clues that a lot of times are ignored by commoners when it comes to toxic situations. Because many of the toxic behaviors have been normalized by society. And when a toxic behavior has been normalized by society, the children are conditioned into those behaviors. So the children who are the adults of tomorrow, as adults, they won't see anything wrong with certain toxic behaviors. It's because that's been normalized by the parents or by the grandparents. But if something's normalized, it simply means that the people get along with it without resistance. Okay? But just because something is normalized, that doesn't mean that it's good. Just because something is normalized doesn't mean it's safe. Okay? And if something has been normalized that's dysfunctional, and now another thing emerged that's worse, people tend to go off at the thing that's worse. But they don't see that what they're holding on to itself is wrong. Okay? So if you're holding on to wrong, and you don't want to admit it's wrong, but you go off at the worst, then you're actually enabling the worst, because people that are involved in the worst will look at you, and they will see clearly that you're wrong. They will see clearly that you're in denial. And they will clearly see that you are attacking them or misjudging them for the dysfunction they're in. And they may admit they're dysfunctional, but then they look at you and they see that you are either just as dysfunctional, or you're even worse because you have a less severe dysfunction, but you don't even want to admit it's a dysfunction. Someone that's involved in a grievous dysfunction, but they are real about that it's dysfunctional, and that's why they are open to solutions. Such individuals are far safer to be around than someone who is involved in a minor dysfunction that they don't want to admit. A minor dysfunction that people don't want to admit is far more dangerous than an open, vile dysfunction that can't be ignored. Because with the vowel and open dysfunction, you see it's dysfunctional, and you're provoked to look for answers to solve the situation. With minor dysfunctions that are normalized, you don't see it. And because people don't see it, they become proud. They begin to rely on the fact that they're not like that big, ugly dysfunction over there. But just because they're not like that big, ugly dysfunction over there doesn't mean they are right. So, consistency can be a trap. What you should be consistent in, no matter what, is in agreeing with Christ. Agreeing with Christ is the only thing you should be consistent in, no matter what. All other things only remain consistent with them or in them as long as they don't go against Christ. Was it for now? Agree with Christ. Be at peace.